Hello and welcome back to The Goodness Margin, the place where we find margin for the good things in life. Today, I'm going to share with you one of the things that has made the biggest impact in my own life as a minimalist, my decision to go paperless. So I have an entire blog post and video that outlines all of the aspects of going paperless, the steps you need to take. But one of the biggest questions I get asked is when I'm getting started, I have all of this paper. What do I keep and what do I get rid of? So first, this is a disclaimer. The information I'm sharing today is for informational purposes only. It should not be considered legal or financial advice. I am not a lawyer. I am not a tax attorney. I am not an accountant. I am sharing with you my personal practices. Before making legal or financial decisions, please consult your tax attorney or accountant. This is information I've decided to be best for me and my family after consulting websites and other references that I trust. Okay. Now that that's out of the way, I am going to share with you my best practices, the things that I've determined that I am going to keep and that I'm going to get rid of. I have read a lot of blog posts. I have consulted with the people who do my taxes, and this is what works best for me and my family. So the good news is you can likely toss the majority of the things that are hanging out in your filing cabinet. A lot of that stuff we don't need to keep, especially if it's 7 years old or older. But we're going to break it down category by category so that you can know the things that you need to keep and the things that you need to let go. So when you're going through your papers, you have two choices. First, you want to determine what categories you're keeping things in. So maybe take sticky notes and set them out on the table, take baskets or bins, and you're going to put those papers in there. Now, you can sort all of your papers first and then go through this list and decide what you're getting rid of. Or you can check out this list and then as you're putting things in that category, looking at an automotive and realizing that it's a oil change receipt for a car that you no longer own, you can throw it away. So you can choose, do you want to go through it as you sort it by categories, or do you want to go through it after you sort it by categories? So the first category we're going to talk about is automotive. The only things that you need to keep relating to repairs, oil changes, or any sort of warranty information on tires or something like that, you only need to keep that if it is a vehicle that you currently own. If it is something that you no longer own, you can absolutely let it go. You do need to keep any title for a car that you currently own. You need to keep the last statement that shows a zero balance for any paid off loans for any vehicles that you have owned in the past. And you need to keep your current automotive information paperwork. Only the information that is related to your current policy do you need to keep in your possession. The rest of that stuff, it can all go. The next category we're going to talk about is medical. Now, this is really something that there is no actual legal decision that I've come across that, okay, you must keep medical documentation for this amount of time. This is really up to your discretion. I keep a lot of our medical records because it may be something that I want to go back and look at, especially as a parent. I want to be able to have documented immunization forms. Each time my children go to the doctor, their doctor will give me a printout to talk about the things that they've gone over, any tests that they've done, vision or hearing, and that way I can go back and look over those later if I need to. Now, when I was first going paperless, I found very large folders for each of my kids for their births. Tons and tons of paperwork went home with me from the hospital. I went through that paperwork and I determined what are the most important things that I need to keep that I may want to go back and reference. And the rest of it, I threw it away or I shredded it. More about shredding later at the end. But it is your discretion as to what you want to keep. Now for medical insurance, you want to keep any statement that shows a zero balance. So if you were paying on a medical bill and the last statement shows that you've paid that in full, you definitely want to keep that piece of paper. You want to keep any paperwork that is related to current medical insurance policies. What is your current policy? You may need to reference that. That's something that you want to keep. Also, any currently pending medical insurance claims or medical insurance bills, you want to keep those until they're completely resolved. And then you want to keep that last piece of paper showing that they are resolved. Now, just a quick note, when I say you want to keep that piece of paper, that means you just want to keep that documentation scanned into your hard drive, your external hard drive on your computer or on that flash drive, however you choose to keep that information. We'll talk at the end about what actual physical papers that you need to keep. So now for financial. For financial things, you want to keep bank statements for the last year. This is to your discretion. I know that for my bank, I can go back and I can access any statements over the last 12 months. There's been a few times where I've had trouble accessing those, especially with my business account. For some reason, sometimes the website with my bank will glitch out a little bit and I have trouble accessing that. So I do download those on a monthly basis. But if you're going back and you have bank statements that are 10 years old, you can absolutely shred those and let those go. The only reason that you would want to keep an older bank statement is if it is a supporting document for taxes that are 7 years or less. If it is a supporting document to those tax returns, then you do want to keep those. You want to keep all final statements of any loans showing a zero balance. So if you have a loan and it has that little paid stamp on it and a date and a signature, you want to keep a copy of that sheet of paper. For credit card statements, you want to keep the last statement that's showing your last payment. And then you can let that go unless you need to keep it for tax purposes, but you can shred that as soon as the next statement comes in and you verify that it does document what that you paid for your last statement. Any investment accounts that you have, you want to keep those annual statements or quarterly statements for the last year. For tax documents, you want to keep your tax returns, the actual return themselves. You want to keep a copy of that forever. You can find things that vary about this online, but especially since you're scanning these in, they take up very little space as a PDF. You want to keep the actual return forever. Many times if we look at a folder that has an entire year in it, there's all of the W-2s, 1099s, any receipts, anything like that. You only have to keep that documentation for 7 years. So if you go back 7 years ago up to now, then you need to keep all of the supporting documents for the tax return. But from 7 years, 8 years, and past, you only need to keep the actual return itself. You can toss all of the other documentation. You want to be sure to shred that. Here's a few other little things. You want to keep copies of any leases that you were in. You want to keep those forever. For your pay stubs, you want to keep those for the last year. For many of us, I don't even receive an actual copy of my pay stub. Those are all available online for the last year, but you just want to be sure that you can access those for 1 year. Any of your certifications or educational credentials, you do want to keep a scanned copy of those forever. Now for your home, if you have a statement showing that you have paid off your mortgage, you want to keep that forever. For your actual mortgage statement, unless you're using it for tax purposes, you only need to keep it until the next one comes in the mail or comes into your inbox and shows that you did indeed pay X amount of dollars last month, and then you can let the last month statement go. Here are a couple of items you can absolutely trash. Any old utility statements you have. I know that when I was going through ours, I had some utility statements that were anywhere from 5 to 10 years old. Those you can immediately let go. You can also let go any receipts for purchases of things that you're no longer going to need to return. If there is something that you have used and now you can no longer return it, then let that go. The only receipts that I keep are things for big ticket items. So say we buy an iPad or a computer. Those are something that I may have a warranty for, and so I want to keep that receipt. Here are the list of things that you do not want to scan. This is actually my only file cabinet other than my hard drive and then the backup that is on a flash drive. So this is all of the original paperwork that I need to keep. Everything else has been scanned in and trashed or shredded. So let's talk about the things that you do want to keep the original for. Any car title to a vehicle that you currently own, you want to keep the original. Birth certificates, social security cards, passports, death certificates, marriage certificates, those you want to keep that original copy. Any notarized documents such as a will, if it has that notarized stamp on it, a copy is not sufficient. You definitely want to keep that original. Also any diplomas, and many of those are also notarized or have a seal. You want to keep the original of that. Here are a few final thoughts. You definitely want to invest in a good shredder. we were able to find a really expensive shredder on Amazon, and I will link that in the blog post below. But this shredder had really high reviews because a lot of your documents you do not want to throw in the trash. You definitely want to err on the side of caution with this. I've personally never had my identity stolen. I have known those who have, and it seems to be a real headache. It's definitely not something that I want to happen to myself. And so any documents that have personal information that I feel could be something someone could use to steal my identity, I definitely want to shred that. You're going to have a lot of stuff to shred. You can also hire that out to a professional company that takes care of shredding large amounts of paperwork. That may be something worth you doing right now. But now that we're going forward and all of my documents have been already scanned in, everything is paperless. Every day when I check the mail, if I receive something that I need to shred, I can just quickly shred that. So you definitely want to have a good shredder on hand. I personally follow a consumer reports guru named Clark Howard, and he gives a lot of really good advice. And one of the things that he says is you need to keep 3 copies of all of these documents. So if you have gone paperless, that means maybe you have your external hard drive, which is your main source, and then you're going to back that up onto 2 different flash drives. PDFs don't take up a lot of room. And so I also, in the blog post, will have linked a flash drive that has a lot of memory in it that I recommend that you can purchase. You want to keep those in separate places. You can keep them in your home, or maybe you want to keep one somewhere else. Now, some of you may think, oh, this doesn't seem really secure. Well, the reality is that if I have a looming natural disaster, say there's a hurricane coming or something like that, and I need to get out of my house quickly, this flash drive is located in a place that I can quickly grab, much more quickly than I could access my entire filing cabinet. So this really is a very secure way to keep your documents. Also, if there was the unthinkable, if you had a house fire, the likelihood that you have 3 different places that you're keeping these files, one of them is probably going to be safe. I do recommend that you have a fireproof safe, and that would be a great place to keep one of those flash drives. If you have a house fire, the likelihood that a filing cabinet is going to burn is pretty high. So this is a really secure way to keep your documents. I will also link in the blog post how that I daily deal with paper. This is a huge undertaking, but it is something that is so worth it. I have photos of years before where that my desk was piled up with paperwork because I would get behind on filing, or I felt like I needed to deal with every piece of paper and figure out the best place to keep it. And now I deal with paper on a weekly basis, usually on a daily basis. And I have finally conquered paper, and I know that you can too. Doing this is going to create a lot of margin in your life for the good things. If you've enjoyed this video, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. Be sure to hit the bell so you'll be notified when the next video goes live.